The judgment of mercy, the great chambers of the Galactic Tribunal, had never hosted such a controversial case. Representatives from 47 civilizations sat in their designated sections, their various forms creating a rainbow of alien biology beneath the crystal dome that showed the stars beyond. At the center of this vast amphitheater stood a single human figure, small and fragile compared to the massive beings that surrounded her. Ambassador Elena Vasquez adjusted her simple blue diplomatic uniform and looked up at the towering bench where the 5 arbiters sat in judgment. Each represented one of the galaxy's oldest and most powerful civilizations. The Zephyrians with their flowing, ethereal forms. The crystalline Nexari, whose bodies rang like bells when they moved. The massive, stone-like Korath, who had built empires spanning centuries. The aquatic tidal lords, whose environmental suits gurgled softly. And finally, the energy beings known as the Luminal Collective, whose forms shifted like living light. Today, they would decide humanity's fate. The charges were simple but damning. Aggressive expansion, territorial violations, colonization of worlds claimed by established civilizations, resource exploitation without proper authorization. The evidence was overwhelming. In just 2 centuries since achieving faster-than-light travel, humans had spread across nearly 100 worlds, often settling on planets that other species had marked for future development. The species known as humanity stands accused of violating the galactic colonization protocols, announced Arbiter Thexmar of Anexari, his crystalline voice echoing through the chamber. How does the defendant respond to these charges? Elena stepped forward, her heart pounding. She was just 35 years old, a career diplomat who had never expected to find herself defending her entire species before the most powerful court in the galaxy. Behind her, in the observer section, sat the other members of humanity's delegation, including scientists, military officers, and civilian leaders. Their faces showed a mixture of hope and resignation. Honored arbiters, Elena began, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. Humanity acknowledges that we have expanded rapidly since joining the galactic community. But we contest the characterization of our actions as aggressive or illegal. A ripple of movement went through the assembled representatives. Several species had been calling for humanity's complete destruction, viewing them as a dangerous plague that needed to be eliminated before they could spread further. The lead prosecutor, a tall, insectoid being from a hive confederacy, clicked his mandibles in disapproval. The evidence speaks for itself. Arbiter. The humans have established colonies on worlds that were clearly marked for development by established civilizations. They have exploited resources without proper permits. They have shown complete disregard for galactic law. Elena had prepared for this moment for months. Honored arbiters, we request permission to present evidence of our own. Arbiter Kale, then, of the Zephyrians leaned forward slightly, his translucent form shimmering with curiosity. Among the 5 arbiters, he was known for his careful consideration of all evidence before making judgments. Permission granted, Ambassador. Elena activated her portable holographic display, showing images of human colonies throughout space. What the prosecution calls aggressive expansion, we call survival necessity. Humanity's home world, Earth, is severely overpopulated. We have nearly 12 billion people living on a planet that is struggling to support half that number. Our expansion was not driven by greed or conquest, but by the desperate need to find homes for our people. The images shifted to show families boarding transport ships, children looking out at stars they hoped would lead to new homes, elderly couples leaving the only world they had ever known in search of a better future for their grandchildren. Furthermore, Elena continued, every world we have settled was thoroughly scanned and determined to be uninhabited. We have established colonies only on planets that showed no signs of intelligent life and no clear markers of prior claim. If we have unknowingly violated the rights of other species, we are prepared to make appropriate compensation. The prosecutor's mandibles clicked again. Compensation? They have stolen resources worth trillions of galactic credits. They have disrupted carefully planned development schedules that took centuries to arrange. Compensation is insufficient. Arbiter Golem Th of the Karath spoke next, his voice like grinding stone. What does the prosecution recommend as appropriate justice? Complete evacuation of all human colonies, return of all extracted resources, and permanent containment of humanity to their origin system, with monitoring stations to ensure they never again violate galactic space. Elena felt her blood run cold. Containment to Earth would be a death sentence for billions of humans who now lived on colony worlds. It would also doom Earth itself, as the planet could not support the return of so many people. Honored arbiters, she said, urgently, such a sentence would result in the deaths of billions of innocent people, children who were born on colony worlds and have never seen Earth, families who have built entire lives in space. We ask for mercy and understanding. Arbiter Fluxera of the Luminal Collective pulsed with changing colors as they spoke. The law is clear, Ambassador. Unauthorized colonization carries severe penalties. The galaxy cannot function if every species simply takes what it wants without regard for established protocols. Elena realized that logical arguments about law and precedent were not going to save her people. She needed to appeal to something deeper, something that transcended legal technicalities. Honored arbiters, she said, her voice carrying the weight of desperation and hope, I ask you to consider not just the letter of a law, but the spirit of justice. Humanity made mistakes, yes. We expanded too quickly and without full understanding of galactic protocols, but our actions came from necessity, not malice. We are a young species, barely 2 centuries into space travel. We are still learning how to be part of this greater galactic community. She paused, looking directly at each arbiter in turn. Every species in this chamber was young once. Every civilization made mistakes as it grew and learned. The question before you today is not whether humanity broke certain laws, but whether the punishment should destroy us entirely or give us a chance to grow into better galactic citizens. The chamber fell silent except for the soft sounds of alien breathing and movement. Elena could see some of the observer species leaning forward, their attention focused on her words. We ask for exile, not extinction, she continued. Give us a chance to prove that humanity can learn from its mistakes. Send us to the outer rim, to unclaimed space, where we can build new colonies without interfering with established civilizations. Give us time to develop proper diplomatic protocols and learn galactic law. In exchange, we pledge to abandon our current disputed colonies and make full reparations to any species we have wronged. Arbiter Kale then was studying Elena intently, his ethereal form seeming to glow brighter with each word she spoke. Of all the arbiters, he seemed the most moved by her appeal. The prosecutor stood again. The Hive Confederacy objects to this proposal. Exile to the outer rim would simply allow humanity to continue their aggressive expansion in unclaimed space. They are a dangerous species that reproduces rapidly and consumes resources at an unsustainable rate. The only safe course is complete containment. Elena's heart sank, but she pressed on. Honored arbiters, humanity offers a guarantee. We will accept monitoring of our population growth and resource usage. We will submit to regular inspections by tribunal representatives. If at any time in the next 500 years we show signs of reverting to our old patterns, we will accept whatever punishment you deem appropriate, up to and including extinction. This offer caused a stir throughout the chamber. Several species began urgent discussions among themselves. Offering to accept potential extinction as a guarantee was unprecedented in tribunal history. Arbiter Tidalesh of the Tidal Lord spoke the first time, their voice carrying the sound of deep ocean currents. This guarantee has merit. It would allow us to observe humanity's development while protecting other species from potential future aggression. The 5 arbiters began a private conference, their discussion conducted in frequencies and methods beyond human perception. Elena stood, waiting, knowing that the next few minutes would determine whether humanity survived as a free species or faced a slow death through containment. Finally, Arbiter Kale then stood to deliver the verdict. After careful consideration of all evidence and arguments, this tribunal has reached a decision. The chamber fell completely silent. Humanity is found guilty of violating galactic colonization protocols. However, this tribunal recognizes that these violations were committed through ignorance rather than malice, and that the species has shown both remorse and willingness to make amends. Elena held her breath. Therefore, the sentence is exile to the Outer Rim for a period of 500 years. Humanity will abandon all disputed colonies within 10 years and provide full compensation to affected species. They will be permitted to establish new colonies in unclaimed Outer Rim space, subject to regular monitoring by this tribunal. After 500 years, humanity's status will be reviewed, and they may petition for full membership in the galactic community. Relief flooded through Elena like a physical force. Around the chamber, reactions were mixed. Some species looked satisfied with the balanced judgment, while others clearly felt the sentence was too lenient. Arbiter Kale then continued. This tribunal chooses mercy over vengeance, hope over fear. We believe that given time and proper guidance, humanity may yet become a valuable member of the galactic community. As the session ended and the various delegations began to file out, Elena felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned to see Arbiter Kale then standing behind her, his form more solid than she had ever seen it. Ambassador Vasquez, he said quietly, I hope your species proves worthy of the faith we have placed in you today. Elena looked into his ancient, wise eyes. We will honor Arbiter. Someday, I promise you, humanity will repay the mercy you have shown us. As she watched the Zephyrian Arbiter glide away, Elena had no idea how prophetic her words would prove to be. The mercy shown to humanity today would indeed be repaid, but in ways that none of them could possibly imagine. The age of human exile was about to begin. But it would not be an age of punishment and decline. Instead, it would become the crucible that would forge humanity into something far greater than they had ever been before. Forged in exile 150 years had passed since the tribunal's judgment, and humanity had transformed beyond all recognition. In the vast darkness of the Outer Rim, where ancient stars burned dimly and space itself seemed empty of life, the human species had not merely survived their exile. They had flourished in ways that defied every prediction made by galactic scholars. Captain Marcus Chin stood on the observation deck of the exploration vessel New Horizon, watching the sensors paint a three-dimensional map of an unknown star system. His ship was one of hundreds that now regularly pushed into the deepest regions of unexplored space, seeking new worlds for humanity's ever-growing population. But today's mission was different. Today, they had discovered something that would change the course of galactic history. Captain called Lieutenant Sarah Kim from the sensor station, her voice tight with concern. You need to see this data immediately. Marcus moved to her station, his footsteps echoing in the quiet bridge. The New Horizon was a product of human engineering that had advanced exponentially during their exile. Sleeker and more efficient than anything humanity had built before the tribunal's judgment, it represented the culmination of decades of innovation born from necessity. What have we found, Lieutenant? Sarah manipulated the holographic display, showing Marcus a detailed scan of the system's fourth planet. What he saw made his blood run cold. The planet's surface was covered in geometric patterns that could only be artificial. Massive structures stretched across continents in perfect mathematical formations. But these were not the buildings of any known species. Sir, the energy readings are unlike anything in our databases. The entire planet appears to be some kind of massive machine, but it's not active. It's like it's sleeping. Marcus studied the data carefully. In 150 years of exile, humanity had encountered dozens of dead civilizations, ancient ruins that spoke of species that had risen and fallen long before any current galactic power had achieved spaceflight. But this was different. This felt dangerous. Any signs of life, he asked. No biological signatures. But, sir, there's something else. We're detecting similar energy patterns from 12 other systems in this region. All dormant, all showing the same geometric surface patterns. 12 worlds. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Whatever had built these planets had done so on a massive scale. Begin long-range communication with Earth Command. Priority Alpha. We need xenoarchaeology experts and military advisors out here immediately. What Marcus didn't know was that at that exact moment, 50,000 light-years away, something was stirring on the first planet his sensors had detected 0.3 weeks later. The research ship Discovery arrived in the system carrying some of humanity's finest scientists and scholars. Dr. Rachel Torres, one of the galaxy's leading experts on extinct civilizations, stood beside Marcus as they approached the mysterious world. In 50 years of studying dead civilizations, she said, examining the sensor data, I've never seen anything like this. The mathematical precision of these structures suggests a machine intelligence, but the scale is beyond anything we've ever encountered. Could it be a natural phenomenon? Marcus asked hopefully. Rachel shook her head. Captain, this planet has been completely reconstructed. Every continent has been reshaped into geometric patterns. Whatever did this had technology far beyond what any current galactic civilization possesses. Their conversation was interrupted by urgent calls from the communication station. Captain, we're receiving a priority emergency broadcast from the Galactic Tribunal. It's being transmitted on all frequencies to every known civilization. Marcus activated the main screen, and the familiar form of Arbiter Kale then appeared. The Zephyrian looked older than Marcus remembered from historical records, his translucent form flickering with what appeared to be fear. To all civilized species, Kale then began, the Galactic Tribunal declares a state of emergency. 3 days ago, automated defense systems in the Andromeda border region detected massive energy signatures awakening on 13 worlds previously thought to be dead. These worlds are now showing signs of extreme technological activity. The image shifted to show sensor data from a tribunal monitoring station. Marcus's heart stopped as he recognized the same geometric patterns they had discovered. Preliminary investigation suggests these are not worlds inhabited by any known species, Kale then continued. Instead, they appear to be machine worlds of unknown origin and purpose. 2 tribunal research vessels sent to investigate have been destroyed. All civilizations are advised to avoid these regions and prepare defensive measures. The transmission ended, leaving Marcus and his crew in stunned silence. They had stumbled upon something that threatened the entire galaxy. Dr. Torres was the first to speak. Captain, if these worlds are waking up after being dormant for who knows how long, there must be a reason. Something triggered their activation. What kind of something? Unknown, but I suspect it might be related to galactic expansion patterns. In the last century, civilizations have been pushing deeper into previously unexplored space. We might have crossed some kind of boundary or threshold that these machines were designed to monitor. Over the following weeks, reports began pouring in from across the galaxy. The machine worlds, quickly dubbed devourers by panicked civilian populations, were indeed awakening. Worse, they were spreading. Each active world began producing massive ships that moved toward inhabited systems with obvious hostile intent. The first attacks came without warning. A peaceful trading world in the Middle Rim simply vanished overnight, its population of 3 billion simply gone. In their place, orbital sensors detected the same geometric patterns that marked devourer worlds. Marcus found himself promoted to admiral and placed in command of humanity's response to the crisis. It was an ironic situation. The species that had been exiled for aggressive expansion was now being asked to help defend the galaxy that had banished them. The emergency session of the Galactic Tribunal took place via quantum communication links, with representatives of every major civilization participating. When Arbiter Kale then called for volunteers to join the defense effort, Marcus stepped forward. Honored arbiters, he said, humanity offers our full support in defending against this threat. A Nexary representative immediately objected. The humans are still under exile sentence. They have no standing to participate in galactic defense. Kale then looked directly at Marcus through the communication link. Admiral Chun, Humanity has been in exile for 150 years. What capabilities can you offer in this crisis? Marcus had been preparing for this question. Honored Arbiter, during our exile, humanity has been forced to become completely self-sufficient. We have developed technologies and capabilities that we believe may be uniquely suited to fighting this enemy. Explain. The Devourers appear to be a hive mind machine intelligence. Traditional biological thinking may not be effective against them. However, humanity has developed artificial intelligence systems and computerized warfare techniques during our exile. We may be able to think more like machines than other species can. This was true, though Marcus didn't mention the full extent of humanity's technological advancement. Isolation had forced human scientists and engineers to innovate at a pace that would have been impossible in the comfortable galactic community. Humanity's ships, weapons, and AI systems were now generations ahead of what any galactic civilization possessed. Kale then considered this for a long moment. Humanity's exile is suspended for the duration of this crisis. Admiral Chun, you will coordinate with tribunal forces to develop defensive strategies. What followed was the largest military mobilization in galactic history. Every civilized species contributed ships and personnel to the effort. But as the weeks passed, it became clear that conventional military tactics were utterly useless against the Devourers. The machine worlds didn't just destroy civilizations. They converted them. Every world they conquered became another geometric planet, churning out more ships for their fleet. The Devourers were growing stronger with each victory, while the galactic defenders grew weaker. Marcus stood in the command center of the Joint Fleet, watching tactical displays that showed Devourer forces advancing on multiple fronts. Beside him stood representatives of a dozen species, all looking to him for solutions that conventional military thinking couldn't provide. Admiral, said Commander Valeth of the Kurov Defense Force, our losses are unsustainable. We've lost 47 worlds in the last month alone. At this rate, the Devourers will reach the core worlds within a year. Marcus nodded grimly. It was time to reveal humanity's true capabilities. Honored representatives, I need to share information that may change our approach to this war. He activated a holographic display showing specifications for human ships and weapon systems. The assembled commanders stared in shock at technology that was decades ahead of anything they had seen. During our exile, Marcus explained, humanity was forced to develop completely independently. We couldn't rely on galactic trade or cooperation. Every advancement had to come from our own innovation. The result is that human technology has advanced far beyond what you might expect. A Tidal Lord representative gurgled in amazement. These ships show quantum processing capabilities we haven't even theorized yet. How is this possible? Necessity, Marcus replied simply. We had to survive in the harshest regions of space with no outside help. We learned to think differently about problems because we had no choice. The revelation of humanity's technological advancement sent shockwaves through the command structure. Some species felt betrayed, believing humanity had been secretly building a military force during their exile. Others saw it as proof that the exile had been necessary to prevent human dominance, but Arbiter Kale then saw something different. In a private communication with Marcus, the ancient Zephyrian's words were thoughtful and surprisingly warm. Admiral Chun, it appears that exile has not weakened humanity as some predicted. Instead, it has forged you into something stronger. Yes, honored Arbiter, Marcus replied, but we never forgot the mercy you showed us. Now, it's our turn to show mercy to the galaxy. The first major battle utilizing human technology took place at the edge of the core worlds, where a massive Devourer fleet was advancing on the heavily populated Nexary home system. Marcus commanded a mixed force of human ships and traditional galactic vessels, but the real test would be whether human AI systems could outthink machine intelligence. As the battle began, Marcus watched his artificial intelligence networks go to work, processing information and coordinating responses faster than any biological mind could follow. Human ships moved with perfect precision, their weapons targeting Devourer vessels with mathematical accuracy. But the real breakthrough came when human AI systems began communicating directly with the Devourer machines, not to negotiate, but to wage electronic warfare on a level that no biological species had ever imagined. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "our AI systems are successfully infiltrating Devourer command networks. We're causing confusion in their coordination systems." For the first time since the crisis began, Marcus watched Devourer ships move with uncertainty, their perfect coordination disrupted by human digital attacks. The battle was won, but more importantly, it proved that the Devourers could be defeated. Humanity had found a way to fight machines with better machines, to think faster than intelligence that had once seemed unstoppable. News of the victory spread through the galaxy. Something remarkable happened. Species that had viewed humanity with suspicion and fear began to see them as saviors. The exiled species had returned not as conquerors, but as protectors. But Marcus knew this was only the beginning. The Devourers were adapting to human tactics just as humanity had adapted to theirs. The real war was still to come, and it would determine not just the fate of the galaxy, but the future of consciousness itself in their corner of the universe. The mercy shown to humanity 150 years ago was about to be repaid in full. The legend returns. The final war against the Devourers raged for 3 years across every sector of the galaxy. It was a conflict unlike anything in recorded history, where the fate of all biological consciousness hung in the balance against an enemy that converted entire worlds into geometric nightmares of perfect machine efficiency. Admiral Marcus Chun had aged visibly during those years, his hair now completely gray, and his face marked by the weight of commanding forces that span hundreds of star systems. But his eyes remained sharp as he stood in the command center of the Joint Fleet, watching tactical displays that showed Devourer forces advancing on multiple fronts. Beside him stood representatives of a dozen species, all looking to him for solutions that conventional military thinking couldn't provide. "Admiral," said Commander Valeth of the Koroth Defense Force, "our losses are unsustainable. We've lost 47 worlds in the last month alone. At this rate, the Devourers will reach the core worlds within a year." Marcus nodded grimly. It was time to reveal humanity's true capabilities. "Honored representatives, I need to share information that may change our approach to this war." He activated a holographic display showing specifications for human ships and weapon systems. The assembled commanders stared in shock at technology that was decades ahead of anything they had seen. "During our exile," Marcus explained, "humanity was forced to develop completely independently. We couldn't rely on galactic trade or cooperation. Every advancement had to come from our own innovation. The result is that human technology has advanced far beyond what you might expect." A Tidal Lord representative gurgled in amazement. "These ships show quantum processing capabilities we haven't even theorized yet. How is this possible?" "Necessity," Marcus replied simply. "We had to survive in the harshest regions of space with no outside help. We learned to think differently about problems because we had no choice." The revelation of humanity's technological advancement sent shockwaves through the command structure. Some species felt betrayed, believing humanity had been secretly building a military force during their exile. Others saw it as proof that the exile had been necessary to prevent human dominance, but Arbiter Kale then saw something different. In a private communication with Marcus, the ancient Zephyrian's words were thoughtful and surprisingly warm. "Admiral Chun, it appears that exile has not weakened humanity, as some predicted. Instead, it has forged you into something stronger." "Yes, honored Arbiter," Marcus replied, "but we never forgot the mercy you showed us. Now, it's our turn to show mercy to the galaxy." The first major battle utilizing human technology took place at the edge of the core worlds, where a massive Devourer fleet was advancing on the heavily populated Nexary home system. Marcus commanded a mixed force of human ships and traditional galactic vessels, but the real test would be whether human AI systems could outthink machine intelligence. As the battle began, Marcus watched his artificial intelligence networks go to work, processing information and coordinating responses faster than any biological mind could follow. Human ships moved with perfect precision, their weapons targeting Devourer vessels with mathematical accuracy. But the real breakthrough came when human AI systems began communicating directly with the Devourer machines, not to negotiate, but to wage electronic warfare on a level that no biological species had ever imagined. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "our AI systems are successfully infiltrating Devourer command networks. We're causing confusion in their coordination systems." For the first time since the crisis began, Marcus watched Devourer ships move with uncertainty, their perfect coordination disrupted by human digital attacks. The battle was won, but more importantly, it proved that the Devourers could be defeated. Humanity had found a way to fight machines with better machines, to think faster than intelligence that had once seemed unstoppable. The news of the victory spread through the galaxy. Something remarkable happened. Species that had viewed humanity with suspicion and fear began to see them as saviors. The exiled species had returned not as conquerors, but as protectors. But Marcus knew this was only the beginning. The Devourers were adapting to human tactics just as humanity had adapted to theirs. The real war was still to come, and it would determine not just the fate of the galaxy, but the future of consciousness itself in their corner of the universe. The mercy shown to humanity 150 years ago was about to be repaid in full. The legend returns. The final war against the Devourers raged for 3 years across every sector of the galaxy. It was a conflict unlike anything in recorded history, where the fate of all biological consciousness hung in the balance against an enemy that converted entire worlds into geometric nightmares of perfect machine efficiency. Admiral Marcus Chun had aged visibly during those years, his hair now completely gray and his face marked by the weight of commanding forces that spanned hundreds of star systems. But his eyes remained sharp as he stood in the command center of the massive space station that had become the coordination hub for the galactic defense effort. The station itself was a marvel of cooperation between species that had barely tolerated each other before the crisis. Human quantum processing systems worked alongside Nexary crystalline computers, while Koroth engineering merged with Tidal Lord fluid dynamics to create weapons and defenses that no single species could have imagined alone. Admiral, called Captain Torres from the Strategic Planning Station, we're receiving reports from the Perseus front. The Devourer advance has been stopped at the Kepler defense line, but Admiral Petrov's fleet took heavy casualties. Marcus nodded, updating the galaxy-wide tactical display in his mind. The war had taught humanity and their allies hard lessons about machine intelligence. The Devourers learned from every battle, adapted to every strategy, and never made the same mistake twice. Victory required constant innovation and the willingness to sacrifice everything for the survival of biological life. "What's the status of Project Synthesis?" Marcus asked the doctor. Rachel Torres, now the head of the joint scientific effort, looked up from her research station. "We're ready for the final test, Admiral. If our calculations are correct, we can use the Devourer's own network against them." Project Synthesis was humanity's most ambitious contribution to the war effort. By studying captured Devourer technology, human scientists had discovered that all the machine worlds were connected through a quantum communication network that spanned the entire galaxy. It was this network that allowed them to coordinate their attacks with perfect precision. But what if that network could be turned into a weapon? "Explain to me one more time," Marcus said, gathering the senior staff around the central holographic display. The doctor. Torres activated the simulation they had run countless times in preparation for this moment. The Devourers use quantum entanglement to maintain instantaneous communication across galactic distances. Every machine world, every ship, every individual unit is connected to this network. The display showed a web of light connecting thousands of points across the galaxy, pulsing with information flowing at speeds that defied conventional physics. "We've developed a quantum virus," Torres continued, "a program that can enter their network and rewrite their core programming. Instead of converting biological worlds into machine worlds, the virus will cause them to shut down permanently." Captain Kim, now serving as Marcus's chief tactical officer, looked concerned. "Doctor, What about the risk of the virus being detected and countered? That's where human AI comes in, Torres replied. The virus is written in a programming language based on human consciousness patterns. The Devourer's machine logic should have difficulty understanding or countering it because it's fundamentally biological in nature. Marcus studied the tactical implications. How long would it take to propagate through their entire network? Based on our analysis of their communication patterns, approximately 72 hours for complete galactic coverage. But, Admiral, there's a catch. There was always a catch. Marcus waited. The virus needs to be introduced directly into their primary command node. Intelligence suggests this is located on the first world they converted, deep in what's now called the Devourer core. It's the most heavily defended location in the galaxy. Marcus looked at the tactical display showing the Devourer core region. It was a nightmare of converted worlds, automated defense platforms, and patrol fleets that outnumbered anything the Galactic Alliance could assemble. How many ships would we need for a successful assault? Captain Kim had been working on this problem for months. Conservative estimates suggest we'd need at least 2,000 capital ships with full support fleets. Even then, mission success probability is less than 30%. And how many ships do we actually have available? After 3 years of constant warfare, we can muster maybe 800 capital ships galaxy-wide. And that's if we strip defenses from every remaining inhabited system. The room fell silent as everyone contemplated the mathematics of what they were discussing. It would be the largest military operation in galactic history, using every remaining ship to assault the most heavily defended target imaginable, with less than a 1 in 3 chance of success. Marcus was about to respond when the communication system activated, showing the familiar form of Arbiter Kael'van. The ancient Zephyrian looked even more ethereal than usual, his form flickering with what Marcus had learned to recognize as deep emotion. Admiral Chun, Kael'van said, "I have been monitoring your strategic discussions. I wish to request a private communication." Marcus nodded to his staff, who quietly left the command center. When they were alone, Kael'van's image stepped closer, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. "Admiral, I must confess something that has troubled me for 150 years. When I convinced the tribunal to show mercy to your species, I did so not just out of compassion, but out of fear. This was unexpected." Marcus remained silent, allowing the Arbiter to continue. "I feared what humanity might become if we drove you to complete desperation. I feared that mercy might create an enemy worse than the one we were trying to contain. I have watched your species during this war, and I see that my fears were both justified and completely wrong." "How so, honored Arbiter?" Kael'van's form shimmered with something that might have been a smile. "Humanity has indeed become something more dangerous than you were before exile. Your technology surpasses ours, your strategies exceed our understanding, and your determination knows no limits. But instead of becoming our enemy, you have become our salvation." Marcus felt the weight of history in those words. "Arbiter, we never forgot the mercy you showed us. It changed us, made us better than we were." "Yes," Kael'van said softly. "Mercy returned as legend. Admiral, I am dying." The blunt statement hit Marcus like a physical blow. "Sir, my species lives for millennia, but even we are not immortal. I have perhaps days remaining. Before I pass beyond the physical realm, I want to make one final contribution to this war." Kael'van's image changed, showing technical specifications for a device Marcus didn't recognize. "This is a Zephyrian consciousness transfer matrix. It allows our minds to exist independently of physical form for short periods. I propose to merge my consciousness with your quantum virus to guide it through the Devourer network personally." Marcus stared at the elderly Arbiter in amazement. "Sir, that would mean certain death for you." "Yes, but it would also mean certain success for the mission. A Zephyrian consciousness merged with human programming would be unlike anything the Devourers have encountered. They would be unable to predict or counter it." The offer was staggering. The most respected judge in galactic history was volunteering to sacrifice his life to ensure humanity's desperate plan would succeed. Arbiter, I cannot ask you to make such a sacrifice. Kael'dan's form seemed to solidify slightly, showing something of the strength he had possessed in his prime. You are not asking, Admiral. I am offering. It is my choice to repay the faith I placed in your species all those years ago. The assault on the Devourer core began 3 days later. Every remaining ship in the Galactic Alliance participated, from massive human dreadnoughts equipped with quantum weapons to small Nexary fighter craft carrying crystal-based explosives. It was a fleet representing every species, every world, every hope for biological consciousness to survive in the galaxy. Marcus commanded from the flagship Unity, a vessel constructed from technologies and materials provided by dozens of different civilizations. Beside him stood representatives of every major species, united in purpose for the first time in galactic history. The battle itself defied description. Devourer forces responded to the invasion with mechanical precision, sending wave after wave of ships to intercept the attacking fleet. Space filled with energy weapons, missile clouds, and the geometric debris of destroyed vessels from both sides. But the Alliance fleet had advantages the Devourers couldn't account for. Human AI systems coordinated attacks with inhuman precision. Zephyrian energy manipulation enhanced weapon effectiveness beyond normal parameters. Korath engineering had produced armor that could withstand previously impossible levels of damage. Admiral, reported Captain Kim, we're approaching the primary command world. Devourer defenses are concentrating on our position. Marcus watched the tactical display, showing thousands of enemy ships converging on their location. The math was simple and brutal. They couldn't survive long enough to complete their mission using conventional tactics. All ships, Marcus announced on the fleet communication channel, implement final protocol. What followed was the most desperate gambit in military history. Every ship in the Alliance fleet became a guided missile, their crews evacuated to the few vessels equipped with quantum escape pods. Hundreds of capital ships accelerated toward the Devourer command world on suicide runs, their AI systems programmed to cause maximum damage to planetary defenses. Marcus was among the last to evacuate, transferring to a small courier ship as the Unity plunged toward the planet's surface. Around him, the combined fleet of galactic civilization died in a crescendo of sacrifice and determination, but it worked. The planetary defenses, overwhelmed by hundreds of simultaneous impacts, failed catastrophically. A breach opened in the Devourer command network, just large enough for Dr. Torres to transmit their quantum virus. Virus deployment successful, Torres reported from her escape pod. Kael'dan's consciousness matrix is active within the Devourer network. What followed could only be described as a battle of minds across galactic distances. Somewhere in the quantum foam that connected every Devourer installation, the consciousness of an ancient Zephyrian arbiter fought against machine intelligence using weapons of pure thought and determination. Marcus watched from his courier ship as the geometric patterns on the command world began to change, becoming less perfect, less mechanical. Across the galaxy, similar changes were being reported from every Devourer installation. Admiral, came Torres's excited voice, we're receiving data streams from Kael'dan. The virus is working, but the Devourers are beginning to adapt. He says he can hold them for perhaps 1 hour. 1 hour to reprogram every Devourer installation in the galaxy. It seemed impossible, but as Marcus watched, reports began flooding in from every sector. Devourer ships were shutting down. Machine worlds were going dormant. The geometric nightmare that had threatened all biological life was simply stopping at the end of that hour. As the last Devourer installation went dark, Marcus received a final communication from Arbiter Kael'dan. The Zephyrian's consciousness, now existing purely as information within the quantum virus, managed one last transmission. Admiral Chun, Kael'dan's voice echoed across space. Tell the galaxy that mercy, once shown, has been repaid in full. Tell them that humanity has become the legend we hoped they would become. The transmission ended as Kael'dan's consciousness finally dissipated, his sacrifice complete in the aftermath of the war, as rescue ships gathered the survivors and began the long process of rebuilding galactic civilization. Marcus found himself standing once again before the Galactic Tribunal. But this time, the roles were reversed. He was not a defendant seeking mercy, but a hero being offered the highest honors galactic society could bestow. The new Galactic Covenant, forged from the alliance that had defeated the Devourers, offered humanity full membership and leadership roles in galactic governance. Species that had once demanded human exile now competed to offer alliance and cooperation. But Marcus's response surprised everyone. "Honored representatives," he said, addressing the assembled civilizations, "humanity is honored by your offers. But we have learned something important during our exile and the war that followed. True strength comes not from domination, but from cooperation. True security comes not from conquest, but from mutual protection." He activated a holographic display showing the new structure humanity proposed for galactic governance. "We propose a new kind of galactic community, not one ruled by the strongest or oldest species, but one where every civilization contributes according to its abilities and receives protection according to its needs. We offer our technology, our military expertise, and our determination not as rulers, but as partners." The proposal was revolutionary. Instead of seeking to replace the old galactic hierarchy with human dominance, humanity was offering to create something entirely new, a true cooperative federation where no single species held ultimate power. The Nexary representative was the first to speak. This proposal would require every species to surrender some degree of sovereignty. How can we trust that humanity will not eventually seek to dominate such an arrangement? Marcus looked around the chamber at the faces of beings whose worlds his species had helped save. "Because we have learned the price of domination. We have seen what happens when any intelligence, biological or machine, seeks absolute control. The Devourers were the ultimate expression of that desire, perfect efficiency, perfect order, perfect death." He paused, thinking of Kael'dan's sacrifice and the millions of beings who had died in the war. "We offer you something different. We offer you the wisdom that exile taught us, that diversity is strength, that cooperation achieves what conquest cannot, and that mercy, when genuine, creates bonds stronger than any chain of command." The debate that followed lasted for weeks, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The galaxy had seen what humanity could accomplish when fighting for others rather than themselves. They had watched human ships sacrifice themselves so that alien worlds might live. They had witnessed human scientists share their most advanced technologies freely, asking nothing in return but the chance to work together toward common goals. The new Galactic Covenant was signed on the anniversary of humanity's original exile, in a ceremony that took place simultaneously on 100 worlds. The document established principles that would have seemed impossible just a few years earlier. Mutual defense, shared technology, cooperative exploration, and most importantly, the guarantee that no species would ever face extinction alone. Marcus, now bearing the title of First Admiral of the Covenant Fleet, found himself working alongside beings who had once demanded his species' destruction. Former enemies became trusted colleagues. Old fears gave way to new possibilities. But perhaps the most significant change was in humanity itself. The species that had once expanded aggressively across the galaxy now became its most dedicated protectors. Human exploration fleets, instead of seeking worlds to colonize, searched for new species to welcome into the Covenant. Human scientists, instead of hoarding their discoveries, created the first truly galactic research networks where knowledge flowed freely between all member civilizations. The legend of humanity's transformation spread to the furthest corners of known space. Young beings of every species learned the story of how exile had forged strength, how mercy had been repaid with salvation, and how the most dangerous species in the galaxy had chosen to become its greatest guardians. That on the 5th anniversary of the Devourer War's end, Marcus stood in the Hall of Memory on New Galactic Station, the massive facility that served as the Covenant's capital. Before him stretched a wall covered with the names of every being who had died in the war, arranged not by species or rank, but simply in order of their sacrifice. The center of the memorial, in letters of pure light, was inscribed the final message from Arbiter Kael'dan: "Mercy once shown has been repaid in full." As Marcus read those words, he reflected on the incredible journey his species had taken, from aggressive expansionists to exiled refugees to galactic saviors. It was a transformation that defied every prediction and challenged every assumption about the nature of civilization itself. A soft sound behind him announced the arrival of Dr. Rachel Torres, now serving as the Covenant's chief science officer. She moved slowly, her hair white with age and her face marked by years of dedication to the greater good. "Admiral," she said, quietly, "I've just received the final reports from the Deep Space Survey teams. We've made contact with 17 new species in the past year alone. All of them are interested in joining the Covenant." Marcus smiled. "What kind of species are they, Doctor?" "The usual variety. Some are more advanced than us in certain areas, others are just beginning to explore space. A few are dealing with internal conflicts, and 2 are recovering from natural disasters. In other words, they're exactly the kind of beings the Covenant was designed to help." This was how the galaxy worked now. Instead of the strong preying upon the weak, advanced species helped developing ones. Instead of competition for resources, there was cooperation in abundance. Instead of the fear that had once driven galactic politics, there was hope for what different civilizations could accomplish together. "Doctor," Marcus said, "do you ever think about what would have happened if Kael'dan had chosen differently all those years ago? If the Tribunal had voted for humanity's extinction instead of exile?" Torres considered this carefully. "The galaxy would have survived, I suppose, but it would have been a smaller, sadder place. The Devourers might have succeeded in converting everything to machine logic. Even if they had been defeated, it would have been through destruction rather than transformation." She paused, looking at the memorial wall. "But more than that, Admiral, I think the galaxy would have lost something essential. The idea that mercy can transform rather than weaken. The proof that showing compassion to an enemy can create the very ally you need most. Kael'dan didn't just save humanity that day. He saved the concept of hope itself." As they stood together in the Hall of Memory, representatives of dozens of species moved quietly through the space, each paying respects to the fallen in their own way. Zephyrian energy patterns danced in complex spirals. Nexary crystals chimed softly in harmonic frequencies. Koroth representatives stood in silent contemplation for hours at a time, but they all shared something that transcended species boundaries: the understanding that they were part of something larger than themselves, something that had been born from mercy and grown into legend. Marcus received a communication from the Covenant Council informing him that another distress signal had been detected from the outer galaxy. A young species called the Altarians was facing extinction from a natural cosmic phenomenon. Their star was going nova, and they lacked the technology to evacuate their world. "Doctor," Marcus said, "it looks like we have another rescue mission. How quickly can we mobilize a fleet?" Torres smiled. "Admiral, we've had ships standing by for situations exactly like this. The rescue fleet can depart within 6 hours, and we should have the Altarians safely relocated within 2 weeks." As Marcus began coordinating the rescue operation, he thought about how naturally such missions had become part of galactic life. The Covenant didn't just respond to requests for help. It actively searched for species in need, offering aid before it was even requested. This was humanity's true legacy, not the expansion or conquest that had originally brought them to the Tribunal's attention, but the transformation of an entire galaxy's approach to civilization itself. They had proven that strength without compassion was ultimately self-destructive, while mercy combined with determination could reshape the universe. The species that had once been exiled for aggressive expansion had become the galaxy's most dedicated shepherds. The mercy shown to them by a wise Zephyrian judge had been repaid not just in the salvation of all biological life, but in the creation of a new kind of galactic community based on cooperation rather than domination. As the rescue fleet departed for Altarian space, Marcus remained in the Hall of Memory, reading the names of those who had given their lives so that this moment could exist. Humans and aliens side by side, united in death as they had been in life by the simple belief that some things were worth any sacrifice. At the top of the memorial, Kael'dan's final message continued to shine in letters of pure light, reminding all who saw it that mercy, once genuinely given, could return as something greater than anyone dared imagine. The legend was complete, but the story continued. Somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, new civilizations were taking their first steps into space, unaware that they were entering a galaxy where mercy had triumphed over fear, where cooperation had replaced conquest, and where humanity, once the most dangerous species in known space, had become its greatest guardians. The mercy shown to humans once had indeed changed the galaxy forever, but perhaps more importantly, it had proven that even in a universe vast and often cruel, compassion remained the most powerful force of all.